Good day. Welcome to another lesson on our entrepreneurship master program. We're looking at the skills program, supply chain management, and we currently the module that we're going to look at now is measuring performance, because whatever that you do, whatever process that you are implementing, you should be able to measure if you are doing well or not. Okay, but before we get into measuring performance, I'll just give you a little bit background on supply chain, what we have covered so far, and then we'll get into how you measure performance. As I've been saying throughout the skills program, to say supply chain is one of those critical components of running a business, and that's where money is made. Supply chain is the process from sourcing of raw material or inputs or labor to delivering a service to your customer. So supply chain is that process, and it consists of four main activities within that process. One is on demand management. The second one is on strategic sourcing. The third one is on logistics, and the fourth one is on production. So these four components will make or break your business. So you need to think about them carefully and strategize around them to make sure that you build a sustainable business. It's not only sustainable, but sustainable because it's competitive. You need to be competitive out there. So to be competitive, it's your supply chain processes. They need to be competitive. They need to be efficient. So one, you need to be competitive. Two, you need to be profitable. Because it doesn't help anyone for you to be competitive while you're not profitable. So the objective of this skills program is to assist entrepreneurs to set up businesses that are competitive, that are profitable. And to be profitable, you need to make sure that you are able to strategize in each of these four components of supply chain to make sure that you get the best result out. So on the demand management, we spoke about the fact that customers are why you are in business to start with. So you must be able to provide customers with products and services that they will be happy with, right? And then for you to be able to provide your customers with the product and services that they'll be happy with, you need to be able to understand their buying patterns, their economic power, their preferences. So you need to study your customers to know how they consume your products, how often do they consume, quantities that they consume, value that they consume, so that you can know, you'll be able to know that if there is a market that you can service, if there is a market that will require your product. And once you know the quantities and the pattern and the value that they will buy, you will be able to set up your organization to be able to meet those demands. Because you can set up an organization and go to your customers and you realize that there is no demand, or there is low demand, or they demand different type of product, or they prefer to be serviced in a different way. Then you would have set up a business to do it in a certain way, to only find out that the customers, they want to be serviced in a different or in a particular way. And that I always use the McDonald's story. When the brothers decided to redesign the McDonald's, the shop, to use the systems and the processes that we know today, they didn't consult the customers. They didn't do the demand analysis. They didn't try to understand what will customers want. What they did is, on the customer side, they looked at the menu. That's the level of customer engagement. They looked at the menu and they checked the products that are moving. So they realized that is the burger, the fries, and drinks. So now they went and redesigned the whole shop, customizing the processes and designing the process flow the way that it will suit the new operation that they were putting in place of supplying burger, chips, and drinks, right? So there was no customer engagement, but it was based on their experience, right? Because they were in the industry. It was not merely because they did market research. They went out there and asked customers and received inputs. No. Excuse me. They were in the industry. So they had the authority to understand what customers might want, but they are not getting. So they went and designed the McDonald's, the system as we know it today. And when they were implementing it, then the customers initially, they were not happy with the new product that the McDonald's brothers were introducing, to an extent that they were even into considering going back to the old model of drive-in instead of the drive-through concepts that they had developed. So because they didn't consult the customers, they were also scared to say the reaction might be permanent. And then they were lucky that before they reverted back to the old system, now customers started to accept the new concept and they started coming. So they might have demolished the new setup and went back to the old one before they did enough testing and before they received enough feedback. But if they had went out first to do customer surveys and all that, they might have known that, no, customers, they say they want this type of a setup. Then how can we make it work instead of giving up on it? Because they already have had data from the customers. But in this case, they didn't have data from the customers, so they were in two minds to say, hey, maybe we made a mistake here. Let's relook, maybe let's go back to the old concept. Right. So with the demand management, you need to engage your customers so that you understand what your customers are looking for. If you are already in the industry, you are already doing it, then you can do it the way the McDonald's brothers did, because you will know, you will see the patterns, you will understand from the interaction without you going out to specifically ask them what will they want. Then you will have the authority to do it. I think it's Henry Ford as well, who said before he started Ford, if he had gone out to ask customers what were they looking for, they would have said that they wanted the faster horse instead of a car, because they didn't know. So because he had the experience and the exposure and the vision, he realized that if I had to ask customers what are they looking for, sometimes they might even not know what they're looking for because they are not exposed to it. Even with the McDonald's brothers, the customers might not have known that they will prefer a restaurant that provide them speedy service where they are selling burger, chips and drinks only. They might have not known because they were used to a different concept altogether. But that being said, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do your market research. You shouldn't understand the trends in your industry. You need to understand the trends. You need to understand what's going on. And even if you make a decision on doing something that the customers didn't categorically tell you that they are looking for, you will do it on the basis of the industry knowledge, right? And remember, if you're operating in the industry, by the virtue of you operating in that industry, it means you are the expert. You have the expert knowledge. So you don't have to hire anyone to do a feasibility study for you. Because as the customers are coming in, as the data that the customers share with you, that data is enough for you to understand the market, to understand the demand. Right. So that's demand management. You need to understand the industry. You need to understand the customer needs, how they buy, the buying patterns, and how much they spend on activities. And you need to understand the industry. Where is your industry? Where is it going? And then you look at innovative way to manage that demand from your industry. Because if you don't understand your industry patterns, you might set up a business that will produce certain things that are maybe a passing trend, and you will be setting up a permanent operation, and once the trend is gone, then you'll be left with a factory that you can't do much with it. So demand management is critical in supply chain. Please make sure that you understand it. And then the next one is on strategic procurement. When you look at the strategic procurement, because you are in a competitive business, almost all entrepreneurs are in a competitive business. You need to understand how you're going to source, where you're going to source, the quantities that you'll be able to source in a most efficient way. Meaning, you must be able to source at competitive prices. So that you become competitive. Because if you are not able to source at competitive prices, it means the cost of your sourcing will filter through into the cost of production, and it filters through in your pricing. You end up pricing your product higher than the market because you are not strategically sourcing. So now, okay, we're going to come to performance management, which is today's lesson. But I'm just giving you the components of supply chain so that when you're doing the performance management, you know which component you're going to look at and what you're going to measure from that component. And then now we're going into logistics. You must make sure you cut unnecessary steps in your logistics process. Make sure that you are delivering in the most efficient way so that you don't have unnecessary cost in your logistic processes. Make sure that you do your route planning if you are delivering to the customer. If the customers are coming to you, make sure that you are placing your store in a most convenient place for the type of customers that you're looking for. Right. If you're setting up a chicken licken, you might want to put it in next to the taxi rank in downtown, for argument's sake. And if you're setting up a Nando's, maybe you might want to put it in the mall at maybe closer to maybe middle class to the high end areas, because it seems like that chicken licken is consumed mainly by low end market, and Nando's is consumed mainly, not that low end market doesn't consume Nando's, or the high end doesn't consume chicken licken, but those markets they prefer because of as well of the price and the taste, because the high end they tend to be health conscious, and Nando's appears to be a little bit more healthier than chicken licken, and the low end seems not to care much about the health part. They are more price conscious, so they are behaving opposite to each other. The other one is more concerned about the health benefits or health. They are health conscious and they are less budget conscious, while the low end is less health conscious, more budget conscious. So those are the two. Hence I'm saying that with logistics you need to make sure that you put your business where it will be best logistically to supply or to service the market that you're looking to service. That's on the logistics side. Then on the production side, you need to make sure that you set up a production plant or a production process or whatever that you want to call it. Because if I'm saying production plant, you might think in manufacturing. No, even if you are selling, you are a retail, you are a spaza shop, that's still a process, a production process or an operational process where you need to make sure that you have your fridge, you have your product in store, how you sell to your customers, how do you cash in whatever, how do your customers pay. That's part of the operational process. Even if you are in consulting, operational process is the type of consultant that you are hiring. Are you hiring specialist? Are you hiring generalist? Where do you put your business? Are you putting it to service in the high end large organization? You might want to be putting it in Sandton, the offices. But if you're servicing smaller guys, you might want to put it in downtown Joburg. Okay, so that you are easily accessible by the clientele that you are servicing. Because if you put it in Sandton, the clientele needs to take 2 taxis to get to you, which is not logistically efficient. So you might lose customers in that way. And then if you are servicing customers, high-end customers, they might be scared to come to city center because it's unsafe and it's not convenient, which makes sense. So you might lose customers because where you put your offices. So with logistics, you need to think the type of customers that you are servicing, how do you want to service them, and find the best and most efficient way logistically to service your customers. Because if you are not efficient, if you are not conveniently located, as I indicated with the service, if you are not closer to your raw material, it might cost you more to go get the raw material from the source, transport it to your factory. You might find that you are far from your customers. You might have to transport it from the factory side to your customer. Then the cost just becomes too much. But if you had consciously set up your factory closer to, let's say, the raw material on the side, so the logistic cost transporting your raw material from the producer or the manufacturer to your factory will be less. And then maybe you might pay a little bit more for transporting the final product to your customer. But if you put your factory or manufacturing process far from both your raw material and your market, then you need to transport this way the product and transport it to your customer. Then it becomes a problem. I know there's a mining project that one of my previous employers had embarked on, where they're setting up a mining operation in one place and a processing plant 200 kilometers from where the mine is, forgetting that they need to transport the ore from the manufacturing place to the processing plant, and they were exporting it, so they had to transport it again from the processing plant to the harbor. So the transport cost on its own, the logistic cost were just crazy, and they pumped in into millions after millions trying to make that operation work. But the problem was how they structured the operations. Yes, they put the operations in one of the economic zones. They were getting the rebates and the cheaper electricity. They forgot that they need to transport these things. So the incentives that they were getting or they were targeting when they put that plant in that economic zone, they ignored or they didn't understand or they didn't comprehend the logistic cost to take the raw material from the mine to the processing plant and from the processing plant to the harbor. So without looking at the three components of the logistic process, they made a blunder. And they didn't want to accept that because they've pumped in, I think it was more than 200 million in that project. You already spent 200 million, but the project is not operationally efficient when it comes to logistics. You're continuously making losses. Yes, you are making a loss of 1 million rand a month. You are thinking that you already spent 200 million. Let me try to make it work. But because it's fundamentally flawed, there is no way that they would have made it work. I know now, even now, they are just trying to make it work. And because the individual is politically connected, then they're under pressure to continuously fund the project. But the project is not going to get to a point where it's self-sustaining. And sometimes you make decisions because of the money that you have already sunk into the project, without understanding that if you continue losing money, you will end up losing double the money that you have invested. Sometimes it's better just to cut your losses and move. Or uproot that. If I was directly involved in the project, I would have uprooted the processing plant, put it next to the mine, so that once the ore is coming out of the mine, it gets processed, then you can transport it to the harbor. Yes, it will cost you a significant amount of money, but in the long term, it would have saved you a lot of money, and it will make the project viable. So that's where, when you're planning your business, make sure that you take the logistics and the processes of transporting your product from the source, not only from the source to the production plant, also to the customer. If it's a spaza shop, you need to put your spaza shop in a place where you'll be accessible to your customers, and logistically you'll be able to go buy in most efficient way. Because you might set it up, you'll find that you are far from the customers and you are far from the source of your, or the wholesalers or whoever that you are buying from. So now you're having a double whammy. But if you are closer to your customers, but you are far from your suppliers, that you can live with, because it's the nature of the industry. You can't be close to both. Because if you are closer to your supplier, that means the customer, and you are closer to your customer, that means the customer is closer to the supplier, so they can go to the supplier directly. But because you are providing a logistic service, then it's justifiable to be closer to your customer, because it provides them with convenience. And you can be far from your suppliers, but you need to manage your supply chain process in the most efficient way, so that you can source and buy in bulk, so that it doesn't cost you much for you to get the product to your spaza shop. Because if you go buy one by one, the cost of your products will be higher than what other players are selling for in the market, and you'll not be able to be competitive. All right. So now I was giving you the background on the 4 components of supply chain, so that you will be able to measure, because today's module we're looking at measuring performance. But you can't measure something that you don't understand. First, you need to understand your supply chain processes so that you can measure it. Remember, with demand management, you need to be able to see that customers are satisfied. So you need to do surveys if you are measuring a demand side. The guys on the demand side, or whoever who's doing your demand management process, it can be you, but you need to be able to separate it, to say, this is how I'm going to measure this part of my supply chain, right? Then you measure the customer satisfaction, because demand side of my supply chain is about customers. You can measure customer satisfaction. You can measure your stock turnover, your finished product turnover, because it doesn't help for the customer to be satisfied, but to only realize that you are sitting with large quantities of stock. As I said, I continue to say that is inefficient. So you must make sure that you have sufficient stock, but not more than necessary. So your stock turnover must be in line or better than the industry. That's how you measure the demand side. 1, you measure the customer satisfaction. 2, you measure your stock in terms of the stock turnover. Where are you when it comes to step 2? Are you holding more stock than your competitors, or are you holding less stock than your competitors? The ideal position is to be holding less stock than your competitors, but have satisfied customers. That's your ideal, that's your sweet spot. That's what you should always strive for when you are assessing performance from the demand side. And then, as well as look at your debtors age analysis. What is that? Debtors age analysis is if you're providing your customers credit, there must be a policy that you have said that maybe you provide them with 30 days credit. So you need to make sure that the number of days that your customers are owing you for, they are not more than the number of days that your competitors are being owed. So you must efficiently put a system in place that manage your debtors, people who are owing you. Because remember, if you have high number of people or you have high debtors, then that means you are funding other people, because debtors is money that people owe you. So you need to make sure that people owe you as less as possible, given the industry that you are operating in. Remember, other industries like maybe you put a spaza shop, it might be cash and carry, cash on delivery. So you might not have debtors, but sometimes to build the relationship with your customers in communities, you might decide to provide credit. But if you're providing credit, you must monitor it to say, am I providing a 30-day credit, or am I providing 60 days or 15 days? If you're providing 15 days, then that is what you should use to measure how are you performing when it comes to your demand activities. That's what performance measurement is all about. Making sure that you measure each and every activity to know where you are. Because if you are not measuring it, how are you going to achieve it? The performance measurement is to check where are you, if there are any corrective actions that needs to take place. Now we're still looking at your demand management. So once you see that maybe customers are not satisfied, then you need to put the corrective actions in place and monitor the corrective actions that you will put in place. So when it comes to performance measurement, you are not measuring for the sake of measuring. You are measuring so that you can put corrective actions in place. And for you to be able to put corrective actions in place, you need to fully understand the activity that you're measuring. So now, I'm just give you the examples of 3 measurements that you can use when you're measuring the demand side. Customer satisfaction is the stock turnover and your data's turnover. And if any of these, let's say your data's turnover is high, or your stock turnover is high, then you need to do something to manage them, so that you bring them within the industry norm, if not better. But you must always strive to do better. But if you can't, but bring them within the industry norm. If the customers are not satisfied, you need to take the necessary actions to see what can you do to improve your customer satisfaction. You need to make sure that there are not many businesses that are doing customer surveys, customer ratings. Get into that habit of doing customer surveys, doing customer ratings, so that you know where you are compared to your competitors. How are your customers feeling about your service? So that you can be able to take corrective actions before you go over the cliff. Because without customers, if the customers are not happy, or if you are holding high number of stock, or you have high turnover, stock turnover, or high data turnover, it means your customers are not paying you, or the customers are not buying enough of what you're producing. So now that will lead you into your demise. So you need to make sure that you measure those, you know what is expected, you know the industry norms, you know the industry standards. You make sure that you are within the industry standards, if not better. That's what you need to do as an entrepreneur to manage your demand, to measure the performance of your demand activities. Now we've spoken about how you measure performance in for your demand activities and the actions that you need to take to rectify any discrepancies or any non-performance on that. And now we're going into the next supply chain process, which is, in this case, it's sourcing, but we call it strategic sourcing because we want entrepreneurs to be conscious about how they source their raw material or their inputs. So we call it strategic sourcing. You don't just buy from the nearest customer. You look at the quality, you look at if they will be able to supply you the quantities, are they supplying you at the right prices, right? To the customers, the packaging and the delivery schedules meet your production requirement. And your production, remember, your production requirements are guided by your demand requirement or your customer requirement. So when it comes to strategic sourcing, you need to set matrices that you're going to use to measure the acquisition process or the sourcing process. One, the sourcing must be on time, so that you see that the things that you ordered, you don't keep your production area or the operation waiting for products to come. So are you sourcing on time? That's one of the things that is critical, because time is money. If you don't source on time, then you're going to delay the production process, and delay the production process, you're not going to produce your goods and services on time to satisfy your customer. And that can lead to customers not being happy with your product and services. So what you need to do when it comes to performance, you need to make sure that Your sourcing, your strategic sourcing, you're always on time. You're sourcing on time, and your customers are, your suppliers are meeting your delivery schedules and all that, so that the production, you don't delay, you don't become a bottleneck to your production process. Sourcing must always be supporting. It's a supporting activity to support your customers' demand, and your customer demands will lead to the manufacturing process. So you need to make sure that when you're sourcing on time. If you are importing whatever, you need to know the timelines. Whoever is responsible for sourcing, they need to know the timelines of the things that they need to import. They need to know and make sure that when they're ordering, maybe the order quantity must also provide them with a buffer, so that if anything goes wrong, then they're still within the required time as required by your operation, so that they don't delay the operation. So it's called contingency. So when you are in the procurement, make sure that you are always on time. You need to have provide for contingencies, that something can go wrong. There can be a delay, there can be a storm, there can be anything that will delay the delivery of your product. So you need to keep that in mind for you to meet the time measurement, right? The second one is quantity. Is your procurement department or the procurement person, or even if it's you, procuring the right quality in terms of the product? Right. So the right quality, you're gonna see it in the production. It will cause, maybe it will break your machine, or the end product might be it might not be the quality that your organization prides itself with, or your customers might complain about the quality of your product, because the root problem might be from the sourcing. Yes, it might be from the operational process, but first, when you're doing your audit to see where the problem is, you need to start with the sourcing. Is the material or the items that you are sourcing of good quality, so that they can reflect on your customer satisfaction? Because if you are sourcing poor quality product, unless you are in the business that is not priding itself with quality. Remember when I was talking about operations, I told you that you don't necessarily have to set up a operation that produce quality product. Even poor quality products are still bought out there. There is a market for poor quality product. So when you measure in sourcing, you can't measure it based on the quality of the sourcing or the quality of the product sourced if your key customers that you are targeting are not quality conscious, they are price conscious. So it means if your procurement process or procurement person buys quality products, then that means they will not be doing what they're supposed to do. So your measuring metrics should be to measure if they are buying the right quality for the market that you are servicing, right? Because if you buy high quality product for low end market, you might be wasting money, because your low end market might not be looking for that quality, right? So you need to measure the quality. Is our procurement process procuring quality products? The third one, you need to measure the price. Are you buying at the right price? Because buying at the right price is key to your pricing at the end. If you are buying your raw material expensively, then that means your end product will be expensive. But if you negotiate and find the best suppliers that can give you the best price, then you're doing what you're supposed to do as a procurement department or as a procuring individual. You must always strive to get the best product at the best price. And for you to get the best price, you might have to adjust the way you buy. You might, because theoretically, you must buy in bulk. Because when you're buying in bulk, you get the discount, right? But you must not be married to getting discounts, because sometimes it doesn't make sense for you to buy big quantities because your operations might take long to process them, and you're going to have money sitting in your stock, and the money that you'll be losing will be higher than the discount that you were trying to secure by buying in bulk. So buying in bulk is not always the best strategy, but it is most of the time, depending on the type of operation that you're talking about, the size and the industry that you are in. But buying in bulk, generally, it helps you to negotiate the prices to get the discounts from the suppliers. But you mustn't chase the discount at the expense of the operations and the efficiency in the operations. Because if you buy bigger in bulk, you might need security to make sure that the whatever the material is not stolen. You must make sure that they don't get rotten, right? And you must make sure that the return on if you had invested that money in something else within the business, you wouldn't get a better return than the discount. So when you're going for discounts in the on the sourcing side, you need to apply your mind, because the discount, it might look like a discount, but when you take into account other factors within your operations, the discount might be not beneficial for your business. So you need to make sure that you buy at the right price. So if you're putting any performance measurements in place for your supply chain processes, you need to make sure that you measure your employees or your team that is involved in sourcing on buying the best price at the best price possible. Okay. If they come to you, no, we are buying on discounts and all that, you need to calculate, okay, you bought this stuff at a discount, but you still need to store the stuff. If it's something that needs maybe electricity for you to store, like maybe you need to put it in the fridge or you need to put it in the cold room and all those things, there is holding cost that you need to incur, which is electricity. There are holding costs that you need to incur, which are security. There might be cost for your products expiring. So if you are chasing discounts, you need to make sure that you understand the cost of ownership of that product, including the holding cost, the security cost, the cost of expiry, and so that you understand if the discount is worth it or not. Okay. So as I said, in summary, when it comes to the acquisition or procurement process, you measure speed. Are they procuring on time? They're not a bottleneck to our operation. 2, are they procuring quality products? And then 3, are they procuring at the right price? And then, yes, okay, and then you have the last one, the quantities. Are they procuring sufficient quantities given the demand from your customers? As I continue to say, that when you're measuring your supply chain, you must look at it from the demand side to say, customers are demanding this and this, and the supply side, we are supplying so much at this cost. So you must be having an equilibrium somewhere. And to get there where you are sustainable, these are the key things that you need to measure when it comes to procurement. Speed or on time, right quantities, right prices, and the right quality. So these 4 things are the key things that you're supposed to be measuring to see if you are running a tight ship, if you are running an efficient organization. Because as I said earlier, if you're not measuring it, you will not achieve it. You need to measure the activities in your procurement department or the procurement individual or the procurement activity. It depends. It might be a one-man show, but you still have to measure those things even if it's you. So that the reason for measuring is for you to be able to take corrective actions, for you to be able to take steps to improve your procurement processes, which is very important to make your organization sustainable. to make sure that your organization is profitable, you need to make sure that you manage your sourcing. Okay, now we have looked at measuring performance on two supply chain components, which is our demand management and strategic procurement. And the second one is measuring performance on a supply chain. So when you're measuring the performance on supply chain, not supply chain, man, on logistics. So when you're measuring performance on logistics, you must always look at how efficient are your operations in terms of logistics. Are you spending on average less than what your industry is spending on logistics? Do you have competitive advantage when it comes to logistics? So that you can see where you are placed. Because if you don't have a clear advantage on the logistics, on how you get your product to your customers, or not only getting your product to your customers, but how do you source your product, deliver them to your factory or to your operations, and deliver to your customers. If sometimes you might find that you might have to go buy from your suppliers and you put them in the store, you don't have to deliver to your customers. Or sometimes you produce those things, so you just have to deliver to your customers. Or some businesses, you have both logistics from suppliers to the operations, and from the operations to the customer. Or some you produce and you sell there, so you don't have much logistics in your business. And for services, logistics is limited because it's only people that are providing the service, so you don't have goods and services that you have to buy from your suppliers, and you don't have goods and services that you need to deliver to your customers. So you need to look at your supply chain from both angles. Now, meaning you need to look at your logistics from both angles, from getting the goods from your supplier to the operation, and from the operation to the customer. If you have one side, it's fine. You still have to look at it in that way. So when you're looking at that, you need to limit your logistic cost, because that's what's going to give you competitive advantage. The few rands and cents that you are cutting on your logistic portion, they will come handy when it comes to the pricing of your product, when it comes to profitability of your organization. Now, when you're measuring your logistics, you look at one, the quality of logistics. Your goods and services are leaving the supplier and getting to you as agreed. And when they leave your operations to the customers, they get there still in good condition. So the quality of your logistic processes must be beyond approach. So you need, if you're putting any measurement of performance, you need to measure one. The first one is the quality, because you can buy stuff from your supplier. When they get to your factory, they are broken, so it doesn't help you. You need to start by fixing them first before you start actually producing whatever that you need to be producing. Or when you take them to your customers, they get there damaged, and the customer is going to return them. So that's additional cost that you might have to incur. So you need to measure quality to make sure that the quality of your products or your services are maintained throughout your logistic process, right? And then the second one is speed, delivering on time, based on the service level agreement that you have with your customers, or what you have with your logistic company if it's not internal. If it's internal, they need to always be on time. So you need to set the time limit, whatever time, time frames when they're supposed to deliver. Once they receive an order, they have so many times to deliver, and if they don't deliver on time, you must crack the whip. So there must be some kind of service level agreement from your logistics person with maybe the operation person or the marketing person, to say, if I order quantities, so many quantities from you, you need to make sure that they're in the factory within this time frames. And if it is from the customer perspective, if the customer order, you need to make sure that they are delivered within these time frames. That's on the speed, right? And it must be dependable. Your logistic services must be dependable. it mustn't be done once in a while. It must be done consistently. All right. So that's one other thing, is that is it dependable? Do they meet the time frames regularly? Do they meet the quality, maintain the quality of the product regularly? Not once in a while. It must be dependable. And as much as it needs to be dependable, but it needs to be flexible as well. Meaning there might be changes on the goods and services that have been ordered. So there must be a little bit of flexibility. There might be additional products that needs to be added to your supply chain, to your logistic into the truck. So your logistic, if it's outsourced, make sure that it's flexible enough. If it's internal, make sure that your logistic guys are flexible as well, but not to compromise on the quality, the time frames, and the dependability. But you need to throw in some flexibility in there. And the last one is on the cost. It must be the cheapest in the market, your logistics. Your logistics cost must be not necessarily cheapest, but within the industry norms, if not below. That is very, very important, to make sure that your cost, you're maintaining the cost, because every cent that you save in that process, they will go a long way to making your business sustainable and profitable. Okay, so when you're looking at the logistics, you must make sure that you're paying minimal cost, or the lowest cost compared to your competitors in the industry. Make sure that the cost of delivery is not more than the cost of the players that you're competing with. Make sure that the quality is maintained during the logistic process. Make sure that things are delivered within the given time frame, and make sure that your logistics are dependable. Those are the things that you need to measure. And if they don't meet, or you don't perform accordingly in one area, you need to make sure that you put corrective actions in place to correct the defect. So that's how you measure your logistic component of your supply chain, to make sure that you're continuously improving your product and services, so that you can maintain your customer satisfaction. And now we're going to look at how you measure performance in the operational processes, right? We've looked at the demand side, how you can do it. Remember, these are not strict rules that you should follow. These are guides, and depending on your operations, you implement them the way you see them fit. So now we've looked at demand, how you can measure performance when it comes to demand. We looked at the procurement component or acquisition component. We looked at the measurement and the matrices that you can use, and then we looked at logistics, and now we're looking at the production process, right? Remember, when it comes to production process, you need to have your quality management system, right? A quality management system is where you set standards for your quality, how you're going to measure quality of your operations, right? So it can be for a manufacturing plant, it can be a farm, it can be a spaza shop, it can be a service business. You need to have a quality management system. Why do you have to have the quality management system? Because you need to know the standards that you need to meet for you to produce your product, or for you to service your customers. It doesn't matter if you want to produce high quality products, or to service customers with high quality product or low quality product. You just need to make sure that you have a quality management system, even for your low quality products. Maintain that low quality product, so that you'll be able to measure. Your customers will know that's what to expect from your business. And with consistency comes brand. You'll be able to brand your organization out there. They'll know your organization, the quality of the service that your organization is providing. It is at this level, and you'll be able to get repeat customers. But without a systems and procedures, without a quality management system, you might produce different quality services or products. You might be inconsistent. Consistency is the key. Consistency is the currency when it comes to business. I continuously say that if you have systems in place, if you have a quality management system in place like McDonald's has, you know that when you're going to buy Big Mac is a Big Mac. If you're going to buy Nando's, you know Nando's, how Nando's tastes like. KFC, you know how KFC tastes like. Chicken Licken, you know what Chicken Licken tastes like. So you're not going to confuse and get to Chicken Licken and it tastes like KFC. Or you go to McDonald's, it tastes like Steers. You know what to expect because these institutions, they put quality management system. And they use that quality management system to measure the performance. But small businesses, they don't measure performance. They don't have quality management system in place. I know that's an ignorant statement. Some they do have, and some they implement it or maybe at limited scale. But for you to grow, for you to build a sustainable organization, you need to make sure that you have the quality management system. I mean, even if you look at, even if it's not for product, maybe for the service, if you look at Woolworths, you look at ShopRite, you look at Pick n Pay, you look at Spar, then you look at your USave, you look at your Score, you look at your Boxer. You see, there are certain categories that you can classify, like your Boxer, your USave, your Score. The service, the environment, the cleanliness of the store is not the same as Woolworths, right? And the packaging, how they present themselves, the cashiers, how they talk to you is different from Boxer to Woolworths. Those are different. Boxer, USave, Score. Those are different with the service that you're providing. And in between, you get your Checkers, you get your Spar, you get your Pick n Pay. Service is different from Woolworths, but there's no major difference. But as you're going down to your Boxers, your USaves and Score, the product, you can clearly differentiate the quality of the product or of the service that they are providing you. And a Boxer is not trying to be Woolworths. They don't have that intention. They are not striving to be that because they are servicing a different market. Because for you to be, for Boxer to be, a Woolworths, that means they need to hire more employees. They need to clean often. They need to improve their packaging. They need to invest in their chills, their infrastructure. They need to invest in their shelves, which is cost. But they know that their customers are not looking for Woolworths quality. They're not looking for organic stuff. They're just looking for cheap product that they can afford. And the Woolworths customers, they're not looking for cheap product. They're looking for quality products, organic stuff. So that's different. So if you're servicing different markets, you need to make sure that your quality management system is designed to maintain the relevant standard. Right. So the quality management system implemented by Woolworths will not be the same as the quality management system implemented by Score or by USave. Things that they need to do within the quality management system, like the cleaning, how regularly do they clean, how often do they move products from the shelf, it's different at Pick n Pay than at Score. So when you're setting up an organization, you must be clear on your customer segment that you're targeting. Be clear on what you want to achieve. What are your key objectives? How do you want to set up your operations? Do you are setting up a Rolls-Royce where you're going to have custom design stuff, or you're setting up a Toyota factory? Please don't get confused. But that must be guided by the customers that you are servicing. If you're servicing mass market, you can service your mass market with Rolls-Royce. It's for the elite. It's for the selected few. And the process to produce it is different. It's custom made. Things are custom made, hand designed or hand crafted. While Toyota just put it in a factory, it takes you 7 minutes to produce a Toyota. I don't know how true is that, but it takes you 15 hours to produce a Rolls Royce. Okay, I'm just giving the difference, but I don't know in terms of the accuracy of that. But it will basically, what I'm saying is it's going to take you longer to produce a Rolls Royce than to produce a Toyota, and the pricing are not the same. And it means the quality management systems that you're going to put in place are different at Rolls Royce than at Toyota. I mean, Toyota, maybe you might get away. No, there's extra paint, whatever. The color is not perfect. No, let it go. But at Rolls Royce, the color, the mixing of the color, the client will have to choose the perfect color that they are looking for. Things need to blend. But with Toyota, you might be doing things to finish, because it's the type of the market that they are servicing. And what they are measuring when they are measuring performance is different. Toyota might be focused on speed. How many cars have we produced? And then on Rolls-Royce, it might be how many customers are satisfied, how many customers have approved the car. Because remember, they design specific to the demand of their customers. So what they are measuring, what is in the quality management is different, right? So even for you, when you're measuring your operations, you need to make sure that you're using the appropriate metrics. And the appropriate metrics will come from your quality management systems to say it must, maybe the car at Toyota, it must take 10 minutes in the painting area, it must take minutes in the fitting area, it must take minutes in the cleaning area, it must take so many minutes to get to the factory floor, right, to the showroom. I mean, that's how they'll measure it, right? And then on the Rolls-Royce side, it might be the testing the quality of the seats. Are they meeting certain standards? Have they been tested? The color. Have you tested the color, the durability of the color? Have you tested the design inside? Has the customer approved? How long did it take for the customer to approve our design? Or how long did it take the customers to sign off on certain things? How did the customer rate our service? Those are the measurements that might be important for Rolls-Royce compared to the performance measures that Toyota will use. But given that Toyota servicing the mass market and Rolls-Royce servicing the few, the number of customers serviced are different. Toyota is servicing millions, and then Rolls-Royce servicing thousands per year. And then Toyota is making limited profit, Rolls-Royce profit is high. So profitability, you might find profitability, even though Rolls-Royce is producing only in the thousands and Toyota is producing in the millions. But you might find the profit at the end of the day is more or less the same. But it's based on the customers that they are servicing and what is important, what is being measured. So, but it's key, even though you are measuring different things based on your quality management system, there are certain things that you need to make sure that goals are achieved, production goals are achieved. You need to measure that. You need to measure compliance with the standards. Yes, Toyota standards are a little bit lower and Rolls-Royce standards are higher, but you need to make sure that have you met the standards. You need to make sure that there is efficiency in the production. You've saved where you can save. You've done things the way you're supposed to do. There are no unnecessary waste. And then remember their budgets. Even for a Rolls-Royce, there is a budget. They need to give client a budget. Toyota will have their own budget in terms of how much they want the car to cost them per unit. And then even for Rolls-Royce, you've quoted the customer so much, obviously we put in contingencies in place, but this is more or less how much it should cost us. And if there are any variances, you need to measure those and get to the reasons why you have such variances. Okay, so it's very, very important that you measure the cost variances when it comes to the production process, right? And then, as well as the the customer satisfaction is very, very important. You need to get feedback from your customers in terms of the quality of the product, because without getting customer input, you might not know if you are producing the quality that the customers are looking for, or the quality that your quality management system is designed to produce. So now, I continually say the quality management. So that quality management system is a document that you're going to use to run your operations, so that whoever that comes on board, he knows what's supposed to be done and what is expected to be produced, so that there is consistency in what you produce. And you must measure your business based on consistent achievement rather than a once-off. Inconsistent. You need to be dependable. The customers need to know the type of quality that they'll get from your operations process. So those are the things that you need to measure when you're measuring the performance of your supply chain. All right. So we've looked at different component of the supply chain and how you can measure each component to make sure that your organization is doing what it's supposed to do. Because without you making sure that your supply chain process is operating the way it's supposed to, you might have problems that you don't recognize until it's late, and it might lead to your business failing. So make sure that you have your quality standards set in your quality management system, and you continuously measure the performance of your organization when it comes to your supply chain process. That is the end of our lesson, and I thank you.